That was Uyeyemi Ajayi, correspondent, giving us a peep into what to expect on today's conversation. And there's so much, a lot today on the front pages of the newspapers about governance at the subnational level, which is just apt that we are discussing the matter at this moment. So let's quickly introduce our guests who are right here with us in the studio. Let me begin with His Excellency Dr. John Uluka-Odifayemi, who is the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum and executive governor of Ekiti State, a two-time governor. He was also former Minister of Steel and Mines Development. Your Excellency, thank you for joining us, and good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you for having me, Claire.
All right, we also have, Kinsley, I think you should take this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we also have here with us in Abuja Dr. Chris Akomas. He's a friend of the House, former Deputy Governor of Abia State and Commissioner Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, RMAFC. Excellency Dr. Akomas, thank you once again for joining us, and compliment of the season, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Your Excellencies, once again, I'm delighted to have you both on Good Morning Nigeria. For us on the program, a primary concern in recent years has been the state and response of the subnational entities to national challenges, national policies, and national programs. And oftentimes when our guests are responding to the issues and queries, there are evident gaps traceable to how the trickle-down effects is not being fully maximized at the subnational levels. The youth challenge arising from what we saw lately as the harsh NSAS protests. The gaps that we saw and we still see in our healthcare system on account of the COVID-19 pandemic, infrastructure and insecurity, and lately, Your Excellency, you led some of your brother governors to pay a solidarity and condolence visit to the governor of Borno State on account of what happened on the fields when tens of persons, that's farmers, were slaughtered by, unfortunately, Boko Haram. So these are issues that continue to engage us from time to time, and it's joyful that we have you here this morning, Governor Fayemi. Just your background that my colleague has indicated, apart from the fact that you're a two-term governor, you've also been a federal minister. Currently, you are chairman of the Governors Forum, and then you also have a development background. So we'd like to take on these issues holistically and see where the missing links are, where perhaps if there's any misunderstanding, those issues could also be clarified. But clearly the perception is that the subnational entities would appear to be a drag on the coefficient of our strive towards national development. What's your response, Your Excellency?
Thank you, Kingsley. Let me greet our viewers at home. It's a privilege and a delight to be in the NTA studios to discuss these pertinent issues. And I'm glad I'm here with my brother, former Deputy Governor of Abia State, Dr. Akomas, who has also grappled with these issues at the local level and is now a national operative. I think these are tough times, generally. And when you are confronted with tough times, we all look for scapegoats rather than focus on the issues that have brought us to this sorry pass, whether they are acts of omission or acts of commission. The first thing to say is let's move away from the blame game. We have challenges in Nigeria. We have a defective federal structure. And oftentimes, because of our long relationship with militarism, there's a sense in which we have imbibed this top-down hierarchical master-servant notion of federalism. Even your reporter, you heard him now, bailout from the federal government. It wasn't a gift. It was a loan arrangement between the sovereign, because it's the sovereign that can access these facilities on behalf of the federation. It's the federation account, not federal government accounts. So even the language we speak is already defective and biased. But that's not to excuse some of the gaps, as you rightly identified, that exist both at the federal and also at the subnational levels on the primary responsibilities of states: security, welfare, infrastructure for our people, social investment in education and healthcare. These are responsibilities that we're not shirking ourselves from. But I do not believe that Nigerians know enough what is going on at that level in various states. There is this broad brush attack on states. You know, these governors are just going around in huge convoys, blowing sirens. They're just a bunch of irresponsible people spending our money anyhow. And you ask yourself, what is this money? For example, one of the most popular myths that you hear also from the Nigerian media is that, you know, governors just collect money, the local government money, and you pocket it. The truth of the matter is, when you check the records on a state-by-state basis, by the time local governments settle what they call first-line charge, salaries of teachers, salaries of primary health workers, salaries of traditional rulers, they hardly have anything left to steal by governors. Yet, this myth is very prevalent that local governments don't function because the governors just pocket their money. Instead of coming to terms with the fact that we need to really sit down and reform our local government structure, is it really viable the way we've structured it? Most federal entities in the world are two-tier federations, federal and states. And it's the responsibility of the state to determine what it wants to do with its own jurisdiction, whether it's going to be 2 or 30 or 100. But this notion that there is some independent, autonomous entity called local government that functions so effectively outside of the bounds of the state, it's a myth. And we need to deal with these brass tacks issues. The same goes for infrastructure. It goes for minimum wage. I saw one of your items this morning. Is a newspaper talking about minimum wage not being met by governors and states. That's true. But that's not because they're unwilling to. 30 out of 36 states have signed up to minimum wage. Many of them are implementing minimum wage. But we are in a recession. Recession carries burdens. And one of those burdens is that states may not be able to meet their obligation as a when due. So it's an entire reform, because what you have is, as I said, a defective federalist structure in which the resources are primarily in the hands of the federal government, but the responsibilities are in the hands of the state. So it's a tyranny of unfunded mandates that states suffer from. I'm not excusing any irresponsibilities on the part of my colleagues at the state level, but I think it's important for people to just get the facts right, and then let's deal with those issues in as dispassionate a manner as possible.
Okay, Excellency, thank you very much. You did say recession carries burden, and of course that's precisely the reason why we plan. If we don't plan ahead, we fail.
Absolutely.
So the challenges that Kingsley enumerated, for which you have provided your own perspective, are issues that have been endemic even before the prevailing circumstances occasioned by COVID-19 and the reception. Mm-hmm. and even before the heightened interest in how the federal structure is being operated.
Right.
So I just like to ask, have the executive governors at the subnational level, is it that they have failed to plan?
I don't think so. First, let me say generally that long-term perspective planning have been missing from our economic development agenda for a considerable length of time. You could say that the last serious long-term planning that we had in this country was the 75-80 National Development Plan. After that, it's been staccato, stopgap planning process. And when you look at the budget every year, it's more often than not just a repeat of last year's budget in which you add another 10% or ensure that it's index linked on the basis of the inflation rate, and then you say it's planning. But this government tried with the RGP plan when we came in. I think in 2017 we had the Economic Growth and Recovery plan, which is what has just ended in 2020. And at the moment, I'm aware the federal government is on what it's called the 2050 agenda. And if it succeeds in putting that together, it will probably be the first time that we're returning to serious long-term planning in the country. However, that doesn't speak specifically to the subnational issue. In many states, we're products of political parties. The political parties have manifestos that they've shared with the people, and governments at the subnational level try as much as possible, to the best of my knowledge, the ones I've looked at, they try as much as possible to adhere strictly to what they've proposed to their people. However, there are some things you cannot plan for. No one ever thought that 2020 was going to be ravaged by COVID-19. When we were planning, our budget was based in most states. Even the benchmark at the federal level in 2019, when 2020 budget was being put together, was $50 minimum. But we went down by April to 20. And then we've struggled. Today now, I think we're back at 50, maybe just for a temporary period. So no matter how you plan on the basis of resources available to you, most states cannot deliver now on infrastructure that they've promised their people: water, power, roads, whatever it is that the communities would like them to do, in addition to just paying salaries, because you are not elected to just pay salaries. That's not governance.
You just talked about resources.
Yes.
Resources available, and I interpret that to mean, all-inclusive resources.
All-inclusive, but particularly revenue.
Okay.
All-inclusive. I mean, resources are more than revenue.
Yeah.
But revenue, we have a challenge of revenue in the country today.
Okay. So I just like to, remind us of a particular quote Kingsley, referred to this morning. And it's a quote by a British author, Ken Robinson. He passed on not recently. And he said that resources, both human and natural and otherwise, do not just lie on the surface. They're buried deep. So you have to really search deep to uncover them. And then when you do that, you create the right circumstances. You create the right circumstances.
Clear.
So have we created the right circumstances
Clear.
for these resources to show up?
I agree with Ken Robinson, but that's a no-brainer, with due respect. I spoke earlier about defective federalism. Yes, the resources are buried under the ground, if you want to specifically relate this to mineral resources. But who has access to what is buried under the ground? The land belongs to me on behalf of the people as a governor. But what you have underneath belongs to the federal government on the basis of the exclusive list of our constitution. So in order for me to reach what belongs to me, I have to come to Abuja for a license. It was only when I became minister, one of the administrative measures we did.
Issue those licenses.
Yeah. One of the measures we did, it was my responsibility to issue the license, but one of the measures we had to take in order for states to become active players in the mineral resources development was to allow special purpose vehicles created by states, registered with CAC, to now be able, like any other private business, take a license, go and look for a joint venture partner, and then develop the mineral resources. So that subsists now. And then we developed, in order to protect the artisans, what is now known as the Presidential Artisanal Gold Mining Initiative, just as I was leaving the ministry. So those are steps taken to creatively sidestep the exclusivity of mineral development. But they're still not legal. I mean, they're legal. But we need to, if we're about what you're saying, we need to do more than that. But for me, I don't even take mineral resources as the best resources that we have.
So why is this issue of federalism not part of your mandate, the part of the manifesto?
Of course it is. In APC,
yeah.
Restructuring, go and check it. It's a central feature of our manifesto in our party. And that's what led to the work of the Governor Rufai Committee on True Federalism. We produced a report. We, governors of APC, we went to sit with the leadership of the National Assembly. That, look, this is our position on this. Everything I've said to you this morning is contained in the report. On security, we were very clear that right now, we virtually fund the police as state governors. Yet, we do not have any control over what they do, except based on any relationship you've managed to build with your commissioner. So these are effective issues.
Yeah, you know, Your Excellency, just before we bring in the former deputy governor, you said that governors are laboring under what you described as a tyranny of unfunded mandate. Maybe you permit me to say underfunded mandate. You get some mandate, but it is not, so you get some funding, but it is not sufficient. So that would be underfunding, much more appropriately. You say tyranny.
Well, that's a semantic debate, Kingsley.
Actually, Your Excellency, the key word I'm actually driving at is a tyranny.
It is.
Because you have also said that there are some myths which you have tried to bust in the course of our interaction so far. Is it also a myth that governors have been described and are seen to behave, in some cases, like emperors, whereas we're in a democracy?
I don't know how people came about such a description of governors. Thankfully, you have my colleague who has been there. But, you know, in a democracy, especially a democracy that has emerged from a long period of dictatorship, there are bound to be residues of dictatorship and authoritarianism in that setting. That's a trite principle in civil-military relations. And it will take some time to wash this authoritarian mentality from our system, because even our people are guilty of it. When you call somebody who is a governor, executive governor, all this superficial honorifics imposes on him a mythical impression of himself as beingness to God. And then you blame him for behaving exactly in that fashion. You've made an emperor out of him. So we all need to take collective responsibility for that. But that's not to say that we don't have personal responsibilities to be civil, to be responsible, to treat these positions as positions of responsibility that must also be used to manage societies well.
Your Excellency, let's get this clear. The manifestation of the Imperial syndrome is seen, for instance, in the emasculation of the other two tiers of government.
Coming from federal?
Yes, from federal, on the one hand. But more particularly at the subnational level, you find that the other arms of government under you are generally fused into one. In some cases, the judiciary is excluded, but in most cases, how many state houses of assembly really function as state houses of assembly, as you will find at the national level? The judiciary, they go cap in hand, it is alleged, to the state governor. And the local government system, generally, is also virtually non-existent. You've tried to describe a while ago, state governors don't, dip their hands into the till of local governments. But whether it is in the personnel that run those local governments, not the public or civil servants now, the elected officials, chairmen or councillors, these are persons who are said to, in some cases, or if not in most cases, be handpicked by the governors. Members of the state houses of assembly, in general, are said to come from the slate, sanctioned by the governor. So that's where this notion comes from. And then perhaps you also need to clarify this for us, Your Excellency. You say maybe the hangover of military rule is a causative factor. But we had a Second Republic from 1979 to 1983, and we didn't have this kind of syndrome.
Okay. You've raised many issues. We had a Second Republic, but maybe what that speaks to is that the preceding military government was also more nationalistic and more patriotic and more responsible. That may well be the reason. And there's a difference between that Gowon, Murtala Obasanjo era and the period that has come after the Second Republic. I don't know. I'm just trying to respond to your issue on that. But on the other points you have made, there's no doubt that some people who have occupied these positions in the past have not lived up to the responsibilities of their office. I'm not here to make excuses for governors, but the set of governors that I preside over as chairman now, I would like to think are more responsive to the yearnings of their people and more accountable to them as well. But they are dealing with a myriad of challenges that would test even the most astute, the most responsive leader. And in their own ways, they are trying to address these issues.
Okay, let me cite a practical example.
Please do.
Just to buttress, what Kingsley talked about, the emperorship. There was a gentleman agreement between state governors and, of course, the presidency to grant bailout for state governors to meet up with some of their recurrent expenditures, including, of course, salary payments and pension payments and all that, with a single-digit interest rate over a 2-year tenure of repayment.
Right.
That has elapsed. And the federal government has come out to say, look, you need to pay, and we're going to get the state governors to pay. But here is the body of governors, again, exercising that emperorship status to say, look, we're not going to pay except certain conditions are fulfilled. Isn't
Claire,
that so?
You see, we're at a disadvantage. and I always get it when these things come out like this. You didn't have the full facts on the matter, you just...
No, the full facts that you
I don't opinion. No. Let me give you the full facts. Opinion is free, but facts are sacred.
What are the facts?
The facts are like this. Yes, there was a bailout, which was a loan, and I referred to this earlier, and there was an understanding to repay at a particular interest rate. And for the better part of my term in office as chair of the Governors Forum, states had adhered to their payments until COVID-19 intervened, unfortunately. It was COVID-19 that led us to collectively, not just governors, The National Economic Council collectively agreed that these payments will be suspended because oil prices had gone down, as I said, to $30. Resources available to state had reduced significantly. If you had to add on that, and this happens everywhere in the world, but as I said, it's not the full fact. That's the immediate fact.
Where did the issue of reconciliation come in?
That's not what I'm going to. This is a gentleman from Ramfak. Don't ask me, ask him. Federal government is a debtor to states. It's a net debtor to states. First and foremost, you take our money, it's federation account. When you look at what the exchange rate is on this outside, even the I&E window, even if it is to limit it to collecting our money on that alone, states will not be as shortchanged as they are. But it goes beyond that. There are monies that belong jointly to us. You have something called Abacha loot. Let me just use that as an example. These monies come back. When they come back, they go to federal government account. When they were taken, it was federation money. So it should be distributed amongst the tiers of that federation account.
Well, this was a gentleman's understanding.
Which we have not, a gentleman understand, which we have not reneged on. I've just explained it to you. It was a decision taken collectively that, given the circumstances, states cannot pay, not that states will not pay. It wasn't a won't pay issue, it was a can't pay issue, and central banks came to terms with that.
And some forbearance that the states have in the meantime, I believe?
Absolutely.
Okay. Dr. Chris Akumas, former Deputy Governor of Abia State and current Commissioner on Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Commission. Of course, we have you regularly on Good Morning Nigeria, and a number of these issues that we've been discussing with the incumbent governor of Ekiti State, those issues do come up. But let us have your own perspective, because again, the general impression, which I would state to you, is that state governments generally do not appear to be pulling their weight, and which is why we're having the drag on national indices, whether in terms of human capital development or otherwise. His Excellency has tried to provide some explanation. But what's your viewpoint? You may wish to begin with the Imperial syndrome and see how governors sometimes deal with their deputies. You were once one.
Thank you.
You're right here, Your Excellency. So you can respond.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. And I want to, say season's greetings to, our viewers. And it's a pleasure to be here with my brother. We've come a long way, and we were in the trenches too, together. So when he was talking, sometimes he almost went into his research area in explaining things. And those that know that background will understand what he was saying. I would like to start not from the Imperial issue, but I will, of course, definitely speak about that. Let me start from the point of the bailout and the repayment and the actions taken. You see, Excellency, I think you were actually being what you should be as chairman of the Governors Forum and the executive governor, like you said it. The oil price went far below 20. At a point, in fact, there were publications that it was going for $1 per barrel, and we had the media everywhere, social and otherwise, was awash with the situation. So that economic situation has been a challenge. Before then, the deductions for the loans were going smoothly. But then came a point where, at the end of the day, the states will say we can't go back, because if we go back, we won't be able to pay salaries.
We are the state.
Okay.
I won't mention names. We are the state that went home with 90 million naira.
So I just want
that
to.
period.
So it was so serious, and it has been a challenge for us at this level, working together, and that is why, if you look back, even just pre-COVID, the mantra and discussions has been the need to show up revenue.
Absolutely.
The Minister of Finance was here. Some other people were here, including the chairman of my commission, the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. And we have been on that trajectory, doing everything to see how to show up revenue. So far, that is still work in progress. And I'm happy we started. Otherwise, it would have been more than serious than what we have experienced. Nobody ever expected the pandemic, the way it turned out, the issue of lockdown and its effect on the economy. And then, just as we were smarting out of it and even praising ourselves that the negativity did not go up to the 6% projection, that we were just between about 3 point something, 2 point something to 3 points. Then suddenly came the NSAS with destructive appendage, and that again, because if you don't get enough revenue, what the subnationals depend on mostly, unfortunately, is what comes from the federation. And people misconstrue consolidated revenue fund from federation account.
Absolutely.
The federation account is the one that is available for distribution and disbursement. Consolidated revenue fund, any money that goes into that place is a federal government-controlled fund.
And not states alone.
No.
Not at all.
No, but you said it's here, but we'll come to that.
Okay, so there are two things, and maybe some may have seen news clips where we've been visiting certain agencies because we are trying to expand the revenue base and also plug. There are a number of leakages, but in a situation like what we have now, where people are finding it difficult to even sustain their livelihood and businesses, what tax is collected from profit? Is tax after profit. You don't tax people before profit. So if people are not making profits, where would you generate the tax? The FIRS, they are working day and night. We are meeting, trying to see, as next week will be FAC, it's like, how do we at least get something that the states can go back and pay salaries? So the issue of that, I'm not here to defend them. They are very important people, but we are all from subnational.
This is what you wanted to use?
No. I said we are all from subnationals. The issue of bailout, like he stated, it was a loan agreed to, and they were paying back until these issues came up. The discussions came up, and it was agreed to give a space, breathing space for them. And that did not only happen with the banks and the subnationals. If you remember, the loans and the grants and things that the CBN had control of, they also did that for even, partnerships. Even the ones with the commercial banks, they appealed to them to consider.
Absolutely.
And this is something that is done in banking, that when you have facility, it was a facility, whether you pay at 0 interest rate or certain low interest rate. When there are issues, you can discuss with your banker or the person that gives you the loan and agree to, restructure that loan repayment period. That was what.
Are you in sympathy with the governors,
On that, yes,
on
because you see, it was necessary. I was sitting there the day we discussed about, and I was supporting the state police thing, and former IGP Okiro was here saying no, and I told everybody here, I said, that fear that the states will take over. I said, the states are the ones funding, buying vehicles and all that. I did say that. So what is it? And we will still have the federal influence. So if any state goes out of line, they can still be, taken care of and called to order. That was my argument. And now we are gradually going towards that, but in unorganized way and unorganized manner. And that's why we're having layers and layers of security, and there's so much confusion. And then the little funds available appear not to be properly managed. That's on that.
Yes, Dr.
Now,
Thomas, on the Emperor, when the
yes.
state of Kingsley talked about.
I'd like for you to say,
yes, I like, because somewhere here, today's Punch, one of the governors was quoted, as saying that the All Progressive Congress Committee, to look at reforming the entire political economic systems, recommended abolishment and reform of the local government system. And it's quoted as saying that the third tier of government is dragging the whole state government structure down. I'm
coming to that, but let's start from there. I don't think it's just the local government that gave this perception of emperor style of governance and relationship. It actually has to do more with the relationship between governors and the deputies. And then governors or the executive and the state assemblies, okay? Because we've had experiences where if a deputy is bold enough to, say what should be said, is considered as disloyalty. And in most cases, like I said, these wars are inaugurated by people within the system who now feed the governor from this side, feed the deputy from the other side, then wait at the middle to milk. And unfortunately, our constitution is vague, and that has been the problem. That is also the problem with the local government issues. The constitution listed 774 local government areas. That is as far as it went. There is no definition, no description of what this relationship should be. Then you created...
No, are you sure, Your Excellency? I mean, if you go to the fourth schedule to the Constitution, the functions of local governments are listed there.
I'm coming to that.
Yes.
I'm coming to that functions. And don't forget that the Constitution also created the joint account.
That's right.
Section 162.
JAC. And the state governments are...
JAC, which has been hijacked allegedly.
Well, that is what, that is what the perception and what it seems, because, but then, how do you, because that provision is there, the state governors or state government must sign, there must be a sign-off from the local government people for the projects or actions that they are going to take. The question is, have we been producing quality local government chairmen and councillors that can actually come up, or people that just wait for the state to come up with programs and then it goes? And sometimes you may not know. Programs are decided even from the federal and it drops, and then these people. However, I think our local government administrative system is too bogus. It's too big. Even the states, sometimes I wonder why some states even have up to 28, 30 commissioners. What ministries are you? Since you don't have enough money, what are you expanding administrative costs for? Cost of governance has become very prohibitive. And we have been saying it. At least from our own, even during our recent presentation at the National Assembly, when we the Commission presented our budget, the cost of governance is growing by the day. Some states appoint up to 1,000 SAs, up to 1,000, some more than that. And of course, because of perception, because of the way things are seen, it is taken that is good. They are providing a kind of employment, is political patronage, while other things, critical things, suffer. Going further, my brother, you have been through a lot, just like some of us. You know that a number of executive governors have taken this executive thing too far. Humility in governance is very important. But then this issue doesn't stop at that level. At the federal level, there are things that are supposed to be held in trust for the federation. Things given to be held in trust for the federation. Differentiate federal government and federation. Most times our people don't even understand and appreciate the difference. They don't draw that line between the federal government and the federation. So things held in trust for the federation is being, unfortunately, sometimes wrongly, captured by those that are supposed to hold it in trust. By the time those that know and believe they have this thing in trust, they are come for it and say, we have something in trust, can we get something out of it? You discover that it's not there. We have a number of issues on that aspect, and that also affects. But be that as it may, the states that are working and the governors that are working in Nigeria, we know. Those that are not working, we also know. The perception is really key. People believe that government money is inexhaustive. There is always money. There's always resources.
Absolutely.
You need to be at that subnational level and see, even today and all that, the number of messages you get every day, because people believe there is money. The state, just allow me make this one point before you.
Yes.
Then the other thing that we must attend to, federal roads.
I want to come to that, yes.
Federal roads. The man in the state, as far as he or she is concerned, doesn't know whether that is federal road or not. And then some state governors are responsible and caring enough to even invest on making sure, because the people that ply the road regularly, the people that go through the sufferings, the people that lose their lives because of accidents are mostly from within that area.
Yeah.
But
Your Excellency, I need to interject because I know you've made some very valuable points. We're going to come to this issue of federal roads, which is part of the carryover of our military experience, where you started seeing the gazetting of highways as federal and otherwise. But let's also now return to some practical issues of governance today. Your Excellency, there are daily reports in the media of banditry, of kidnapping, armed robbery. And then, of course, we have a public health challenge arising from coronavirus. And in October, we saw a bust, as it were, of the youth challenge. What's your reading of the national situation?
The national situation is very challenging. There's no doubt that these issues have come together. And it's almost a perfect storm. COVID-19, NSAS, insecurity. There's a direct correlation between poverty and insecurity. We cannot take away from that. However, governments at the local level are trying what they could. That's what has resulted in this variegated nature of security outfits. Vigilante here, civilian JTF there, Amotekun here, and you have them all over the place as a response to that immediate challenge you mentioned. But we will not come to terms with our insecurity situation if we do not address the nature of our security architecture. Take intelligence. Intelligence gathering is not what it used to be, even in the days of Special Branch and CIB. Yet you have many more intelligence institutions proliferating the place. But in terms of basic information, diligent investigation, access to justice, all of these have almost collapsed. Even when you arrest, the next day, the IPO, the investigating police officer, is transferred to Port Harcourt. So for the next 6 months, if you cannot get him to come back to the court, that person is going to go free and return to perpetuate another round of heinous crime. So we need to tie together it's an entire gamut of our security sector governance framework. If you look at it, equipment, training, leadership, and accountability of our security structures, they're all defective. And you cannot put something on nothing. What has just exacerbated our situation is the poverty. And people are hungry. And when people are hungry, they tend to be more hungry. And for somebody who has nothing to lose, that's the most dangerous human being you can get. When somebody has nothing to lose, he's ready to do anything, perpetrate all types of violence. And we need to rescue our country from the brink. Collectively, security is a collective job. It's not just the job of the governor or the commissioner of police. All of us have a role to play in managing this difficult situation we are found ourselves.
I just want to follow up on that because it's touched on poverty and it's often a recurring decimal. But how do we collectively crush our poverty numbers or the numbers of the poor at the state level? You've had the benefit of being at the state level where you are now, and also at the federal level. What do you find as the major challenge in cascading down policies formulated at the federal level and required to be implemented? You hear a lot being said at the federal level. Oh, agric this, agric that, all kinds of schemes, end power, and so on and so forth. Come again?
It doesn't get anywhere. I can give you a very quick example. Okay,
yes.
you have our social investment program, laudable program. But when you actually investigate the beneficiaries, how many? 2%? If 2 million people are the beneficiaries of, say, Empower, they're not even up to that. Empower collectively, since it started, maybe 400, 500,000. How many people do we have as graduates every year? Almost 10 million. One of the news items you read this morning put the poverty figure at over 100 million. So it's a token. When it's band-aid on bullet wound, it's not deep. That's how I see it at the state level. So you send this money, big deal, oh yes. trader money, market money. How many people benefit from these things? They're just peanuts.
Well,
So
that's
one.
What are the states on their own
Exactly.
then doing?
Doesn't that confer responsibility on
For
the state
many
governments?
of these things, states already have a whole range of empowerment programs.
And those ones are working?
They're definitely working better than the ones that come from federal. I can tell you that. In many states. But that will not, these kinds of things will not enable us to get out of poverty. As a matter of fact, they will deepen our poverty trap. What we need to do is provide access to opportunities, agriculture, entrepreneurship, support for businesses. Because we create this dependency syndrome that our people don't even want to work. They just want to sit back, collect these freebies, and then wait till the next one comes. You don't build a society like that. We need to let our people realize that the money is not there. But there is a perception, just as my brother said, that there is a limitless fund that the government holds. And before you wake up, he made a reference to it. I don't want to talk about it, but it's a daily challenge that every politician gets.
Okay, Your Excellency, we have just a few minutes, to go on this conversation.
I see
but
you're talking about pension fund. I would like to talk about that in your program.
Yes. I like to also ask, because Dr. Akomas...
We will allow you to speak to that, because they say governors want to borrow from pension.
So I won't come here and walk away without talking about it.
Yes,
we'll give you the opportunity.
Yes. So the federal allocation is not state governors' money alone.
It's not.
It's the federation.
As a matter of fact, it's only 26% that comes
exactly.
to us.
So what belongs to the state executives is the IGR,
which is improving. Significantly.
By what means? By just tax system alone? What are the revenue nets?
That's the point. Dr. Akoma said something. You can only tax somebody who has made profit. You can't tax before profit. But even at that, because states realize that they do not have a choice, they can't be wholly dependent on what comes on the federal because it's not enough. They are looking at various creative means of improving revenue generation. Many of them, many states that I'm aware of, are creating autonomous internal revenue services run by professionals, helping to block leakages. They are also putting in place technological advances to track who has what. If you have a property that is just sitting there, that you're not paying tenement rate, land use charge, you name it, better collection. In most states, there are no new taxes, but there are much more efficient way of collecting old taxes that have always been in the books, and they're increasing their revenue generation capacity. I can tell you that without that, many states would have been dead, collapsed completely, because Federation account has not done much for them.
Maybe you want to speak on the pension fund just before we bring...
just to correct.
Dr. Akomas, very briefly, we know that you can write many paragraphs when you are speaking, but very briefly, before we give His Excellency the opportunity of wrapping up.
Yeah, let me say here, Your Excellency, and to all of us, one of the major problems we have within subnationals is prioritization. A number of the subnationals appear not to prioritize well. We talked about planning. I still make reference to Akwa Ibom State. When Akbani Simen came on board, he called everybody. They had a plan for the state over a long period of time. That was a stake. When Obangata came, he called everybody. They reviewed that plan. So no matter your political party and where you come from, there's a development plan for the state. You key in there and take the aspect you want to. That is something the states should begin to do. Talking about security, Intelligence. In the past, how many of us even knows who an NSO person was? But today, people brag. So how would people get intelligence? Now, on this issue, Excellency, you made a point, and I wouldn't allow you go with that. You said that the Federation has done nothing, the Federation account.
No.
I
didn't say it's done nothing. I can't say that it's done nothing.
Okay, it's not that you are not getting enough.
If we had depended on it,
good.
We would not. Many states would not have been able to survive.
Good. Just as the federal, at that federation level, we are working hard to expand the tax net, bring a number of, so also the states should do the same.
And when they do it, you talk about multiple taxes.
Yes, and you talk about, no, when you, okay. you have already said it, that they are not talking about new taxes, but these are taxes that are existing, that are there in the books, but to enhance and make sure that they are collected. Now talking about poverty.
Gentlemen, we cannot go, but Your Excellency, just on the pension.
I just must talk about the pension distortion that I've had. The position is very clear. States are not taking pension funds. Pension funds are not under the control of states. In the first instance, pension funds in Nigeria today does not have in its kitty anything close to 17 trillion. They don't even have 10 trillion. So how can you take what is not there? But what we did at the National Economic Council, which is made up of federal and states, chaired by His Excellency the Vice President, we were racking our brain in the heat of COVID, recession, everything. States are not just in the business of paying salaries. How do we meet the other needs of the over 90% of our population that do not earn civil service salary, teacher salary, health worker salary?
So what's the
and we decided that there should be a national infrastructure fund. How do we fund this national infrastructure fund? We ensure that it meets the criteria that would enable the fund to operate like a bond. We take bonds now, we take structure, and it's companies that will take it, not states.
We will have to bring you back.
No, you may not have the time. I'm in the village. I live in Ekiti State.
Yes, you can join us now.
I don't live...
we are the technology, there's technology
okay, good.
now. So
if you want to do that, that's fine.
Do we have a commitment from you?
Oh, yeah, at all times. I mean, any opportunity to enlighten Nigerians, I would be happy to do so.
There's so much more to talk about.
But please, don't let this discussion go away. State governors are not taking pension funds.
All right, you heard it from the...
But they are not, is it say taking? Or what is that? Is it they are not borrowing pension funds or what?
They are not even borrowing pension funds.
What do they want to do?
Projects are borrowing pension funds, which is what projects do.
Right.
That's why you have bonds.
Who will be the guarantor of those funds?
The guarantor is the company that is created and the managers of the pension fund.
Yeah, because you cannot access the fund directly.
So
government
no, we're not accessing it.
Yes, the executive governor of Ekiti State and, of course, chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, a two-time governor, former minister of the Federal Republic. It's a pleasure to have you, and we have also gotten commitment from you. Whenever we call upon you, we have your details, we have your contact. Thank you very much.
As long as you don't, as long as you stop making governors your battering ram, we are good people.
Dr. Chris Akamas, former Deputy Governor of Abia State and Commissioner, Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, thank you as always for joining us on the program today.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on a short break. When we come back, we'll take our